This is the cheapest Audi in America. Cheapest turbo manual Audi, cheapest B5, I don't know. But I got a screaming good deal on it, and I know one person who's going to be very excited that I bought this car. And it's not Jake, who's behind the camera, who once gave me $1,000 to buy one of these, and then I couldn't find one in that price range. However, this is the new Daily that is replacing the Fiesta ST, and I could not be happier. For those who are unaware, I used to have a Brillant Gelb B5 A4, which is a pretty rare factory color. It was the brightest, most obnoxious yellow from the factory, and that was my favorite thing about that car. What I didn't like about that car was that there was two different VIN numbers on the car, one under the hood and one behind the windshield. It had no airbags, and when I bought it, the seat belts had been locked because they have a CO2 locking mechanism. When we get in an accident, the seat belt locks, and once it retracts, you can't get it back out without taking part of the interior apart. So I drove it home 3 hours with no seat belts. It also sat in a flood, I'm pretty sure, because I had to take a torch to some of the lug nuts until they were glowing red to actually get them off. Lug bolts, sorry. What I can tell you about the yellow car I used to own was that I paid far too much money for it, $2,300 in fact. And this one, I didn't pay quite that, and this one's a whole lot nicer. So we'll start in here. Good news, 5-speed manual transmission, the O2A, I believe, Volkswagen transmission. We got the Audi Symphony sound system, meaning there's Bose speakers all up in this thing. Black leather, heated, all the electronics work. I can show you my favorite party trick, in fact, of the B5 platform. Let's say you're going out clubbing for the evening and you accidentally left your windows down. It's not an issue because you just lock the door and hold it and all the windows go up. Or maybe you're about to go for a cruise and you go, oh, my Audi has all black leather interior. It's gonna be hot in there. You just unlock it, it'll roll down all the windows the same way it rolls them up. I struggled to find one for the $1,000 budget about 1.5 years ago, because I was very picky and I was not going to get one. It gets there, hang on. I was not gonna get one that wasn't manual Quattro 1.8 turbo, and this happens to be all of these things. So here is Volkswagen's lovely ATW 1.8T. This is before the B6 era, so it still has the rods that are capable of a lot of horsepower. Recently, the previous owner did the timing belt. I was going to ask him if the timing belt had been worked on, but if you'll take a closer look here, you'll see there's no timing cover on it, which is going to be alleviated because it is an interference engine. I'm not going to risk taking a rock if I'm going to be daily driving this thing. There's probably 1 million of it at the junkyard, so it'll be fine. One coil pack is different, which is a little bit weird, but it is what it is. We don't need to get too picky here. I'll explain why here in a second. But timing belt was done 36,000 miles ago. Guy seemed very not stupid, is what I'm trying to say. He looked and talked like he knew what he was doing. It runs fantastic, so I don't doubt for 1 second that that timing belt was done okay. And it actually is an OEM timing belt. Nice. Battery doesn't seem very stock, but stock intake, stock turbo, the KO3. I know, but we'll get that situated eventually. Has the cover over the ECU. Now the last one I had didn't, and I took it through a car wash once and had to bolt out of the car wash because water started running down the pedals at my feet. So that's pretty cool. Take a trip around the back and it's locked. But if I unlock it, you can see that not only really rich Audi owners got the privilege of having the ski bag as featured in Doug DeMuro's RS6 video. Miata people, gross. My basic poor people $50,000 A4 also came with the ski bag. So this fender, clearly not a stock fender. You can tell from the telltale black knot primer. If you ever buy an aftermarket fender, which you shouldn't in the first place, don't ever spray directly onto that black stuff. It's not primer. This will happen eventually. But if that and the paint not being the same wasn't enough of a giveaway, if you could take a look in here, Audis were not made in Taiwan, and neither were their body parts. So, new fender, this fender also needs replaced, and these headlights, while choice, would not be my choice. So these things are pretty roomy, and actually my yellow one I camped out in a lot when I lived in Wichita, Kansas, but it's worth keeping in mind. I'm 6'3", 225 pounds, and you can lounge out in here. In fact, if you fold down that other seat, you can fit 2 people in here. I'm not gonna get into how I know though. So here's where the story becomes a little unbelievable. Fresh timing belt, well maintained, 2000 Audi A4, meaning we don't have to deal with the ugly tiny mirror. Don't get me started on that. If you don't know what I'm referencing, look up 1996 through 1998 B5 Audi A4. For some reason, the passenger side mirror was smaller. I get there's a different size blind spot or whatever, but just what a poor decision. Facelift, B5 A4, 1.8 turbo, 5-speed manual, quattro, leather interior, everything works. Cruise control, all the windows, sunroof, everything. It's not even sticky. Everything works fine. Keep for reference that my yellow one was $2,300 and a giant pile of oh yeah, has 195,000 miles on it, and I paid $500 for it, believe it or not. So there you go. Let's you get it. It's an Audi. Let's go for a drive.
Through August 17th, when you redeem balance.
Now the funny part is, I posted in this Facebook group because what I really wanted to get to replace the Fiesta was a Honda CR-V. If I'm being honest, a B series Honda CR-V. I posted in this Facebook group just out of curiosity as to what people would say. What are some all-wheel drive, 4-cylinder, reliable cars available in North America for less than $1,500? And one guy commented B5 Audi A4. And I was like, no, see, I used to have one of those and I love and miss that car. In fact, people ask me what car I regret selling the most, and it probably was my Berlant Gel B5, even though it was a giant pile. I wanted to say, no, that's not reliable, that's not a Honda, that's not a Toyota, that's an Audi. But then I remembered how I owned that car before I was really into cars, and I neglected it to all hell. In fact, I think I changed the oil twice when I had that car, which doesn't sound that bad because I owned it for 8 months, but I also put over 25,000 miles on it in those 8 months. I drove it from Boise to Wichita, Kansas, from Wichita, Kansas to Killeen, Texas, Killeen to Houston, Houston to Tyler, Tyler back to Houston, Houston back to Killeen, Killeen back to Wichita, and then Wichita back to Boise without incident. The only problem I ever had with that car was the power steering rack going out when I accidentally spiked the power steering cooler on a speed bump. It was lowered just a little bit. So it caused a leak, and I didn't know the whole, what a CF11S I think is what it is. That'll be stuck with me for a while. The mineral oil fluid you have to run in the power steering, because if you run regular power steering fluid, you blow the seals in the power steering rack. Being that it's just a Volkswagen 1.8T, and Audi Quattro drivetrains are notorious for being well withstanding and very strong and reliable platforms, I wouldn't hesitate to drive this car across the country. So it's got a turbo. Is it fast? No. No, it's not. In fact, I believe it came from the factory with 165 horsepower. Not very impressive by today's standards, or realistically even by 2000 standards. But it is what it is. It's a very solid engine that can take a lot of power, and things as simple as putting a KO4 turbo and a tune on it can push you well into the mid 200 range, which is more than enough. I'd really like to do a little bit of performance modification, but nothing that's going to jeopardize it being trustworthy to go on a long road trip. So, you know, simple things like KO4, the APR, ECU, flash, and some good stuff like that. Just basically I want it to be as fast or faster than the Fiesta. I could be pretty content with that. So how does it drive for a $500 Audi? Really, really good actually. There's a little bit of play in the steering. You got just a little bit of slop before you get a reaction, which is probably just ball joints. And I know sometimes these have issues with the steering box or yada yada. I don't know if that's too common on these, but as far as I'm concerned, it's probably mostly just ball joints and just front end stuff, which is simple enough. It needs new engine mounts, but it's not like detrimental. I am going to get some. Check engine lights on because it's a Volkswagen product. It does, when you fill it with gas, struggle a little bit, which would be upsetting, except for the Fiesta does that too. Or it just tries to stall when you fill up the gas tank, which is you know, interesting because it's 16 years newer and $15,000 more than this car. But I believe it's just the purge, or the purge valve for the pressure release of the gas system in this car that's causing that. I have a bunch of friends with Vagcoms, so we can scan that and it should be pretty easy. Airbag light is on, which is I'm used to seeing that because the yellow one had no airbags. But I mean, other than those few little complaints, it drives super nice. It's an Audi, regardless of how old it is. It just cruises. It's like driving a cloud. The seats have 6 ways of heating, so you can pick 1 through 6 of hotness for your butt and back, which is pretty rad. It's got the thermostat control system, and actually, to put that in perspective, you know, you can specifically pick what temperature you want it to be in the car. That works so well that when I left Tyler, Texas, I had it set on 65 and the AC was on, and by the time I hit Oklahoma City, it was November. It was like 30 degrees outside. The car hadn't changed at all inside temperature. So when I opened the door, I was suddenly freezing because I was wearing shorts and a t-shirt. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, like every other B5 and Audi really from this generation, the center display there doesn't work. Which, why would you expect it to? When I say all electronics work, if you know Audi, you assume that is excluded. Also, for some reason it has a Greddy turbo timer. Overall, I am very excited to be back in a B5 chassis car. I don't think we're gonna run into many issues. Knock on that wood though. But yeah, dude, this thing's dumb lit. This, like I said, fenders need replaced. The rear trunk lid, if I was gonna paint it or wrap it, I'd replace that too because it's got a little bit of a dent there. Get rid of some headlight issues. Obviously, something exhaust and intake related has to be done because they sound cool. But there you go, guys. My new daily driver. Thank you guys very much for watching. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram. Add me on Snapchat at BigB1011. If you want to see a picture of your car featured at the end of one of my videos, send a picture of your car to me for the car of the video segment to curseforeverhelp@gmail.com. We'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.